You guys asked for bookish book recs, like books that surround people in libraries or in bookstores, or books that are all about book lovers and like bookish people. So I have 10 book recs for you guys if you guys want to just read more about people who love books or who are publishers or work in publishing houses, and they're all fiction and all romance. So let's get into this. If you guys enjoy getting book recs, make sure you guys are subscribed because I upload videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I hope you guys enjoy all these book recs because I loved all these books. The first book that I want to share with you guys is The Lonely Hearts Book Club by Lucy Gilmore. Now, this book is actually set in a library, which I feel like literally fits the exact vibe that you guys have been asking for because you want to read more bookish books. And this is about Sloane, who she works at this library and she meets this elderly gentleman who comes in. He's kind of grumpy and he just is not interested in just like being nice to literally anyone, and people avoid him, and they kind of start to have like a little bit of a relationship, but he still isn't really like nice to anyone, and he ends up like not coming to the library anymore, and Sloane gets worried. She's like, what the heck, like what happened to him? So she goes to his house and finds out that he is actually like sick, and so she ends up trying to take care of him, and in that she creates this little book club for pretty much like a hodgepodge, a bunch of people, and it is really good. Her job is kind of on the line at the library because she just like goes and decides to help this guy who used to come to the library, and they're like, you literally can't do that. That is not like part of your job to like go to other people's houses and like help them. So this was a book that again is very bookish. It's set in a library and they literally talk about books in their book club, and so it is very, very, very bookish. So if you're looking for a bookish book, this is a good rec for that. This book is called The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and this is about Florence, who's a ghostwriter, and she pretty much has pushed her deadline to the max, and the guy who's like over the deadlines of like when things need to be turned in is like, you cannot get an extension, it needs to be submitted on time. And whenever he says that, literally right after that, she gets a call from her hometown saying she needs to immediately go home, and there's kind of like an emergency type situation. So she goes home, but within this is kind of like a supernaturally type book, which I didn't know that going into it. So I want to share that with anyone who is like, I don't know, maybe not as interested in those types of books because they're not necessarily my vibe, but I did enjoy this book. It was very well written, and she goes back home and pretty much she can like see ghosts, and there's like this ghost that comes to her that keeps coming back to her, and he like needs her to like do things for him in the real world because obviously he's a ghost and like can't do stuff like that. So again, this was not necessarily my favorite book because it does like kind of go into the like supernaturally type realm, and this was actually in the romance section because it is a romance book, believe it or not. But it is about a ghost writer, and she, obviously, if you guys don't know what a ghost writer is, it's pretty much someone who is writing for someone else under like a different pen name. So she's not like writing about ghosts, but it does have ghosts in it. But she is a writer, and this book is very heavy on her writing and trying to figure out like her story and what she wants to share. And it is a good book if you're wanting to look into maybe like a different type of like writing vibe in a book. It's very, very different, a very unique story. If you're looking for that, this is the one. Book Lovers is in the title of this book. It's literally called Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and this is a well-known book that people love. And it's about Nora, who's a literary agent, and Charlie, who he is a like kind of brooding editor, like very like grumpy and not like the happy vibes, and they end up meeting. They don't really care for each other, and she ends up having to go to this small town with her sister because her sister's like, we need to like take a break, you work too much, so let's go to this small town. So they go there, and she ends up seeing the broody like grumpy editor Charlie at that small town. She's like, how the heck did you end up in the same town as me when I'm like on vacation just trying to like chill? Obviously both of them are very bookish people because they're editors, and what I love about this book is they go to bookstores to work because while they're in this town there isn't any the internet. So it's definitely giving small town vibes. And while they're in the bookstore, they end up like working together, not like on the same projects, but like working in the same vicinity. And it's just like a really cute book. I really enjoyed this one. This book was so cute. It's called The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest, and it is very, very bookish. So if you're looking for a bookish book, especially with one with like diversity, this is the one that you need. It's about Lily, who she's always wanted to get into children's writing and like editing, but she's stuck in the nonfiction realm of like writing and editing books, and she's trying to get out of it, but it's like hard to pivot to different genres. And she really likes reading books, obviously as a bookish person, and she likes reading fantasy. And one of her favorite authors, she found his email and starts like emailing him. She starts out emailing him just because she's like, I really liked your book, it's so good. And then they kind of like email back and forth, and they email back and forth so much that they literally end up like kind of falling for each other. And his name is, I forget what his pen name is, but his real name is Nick. And in the email, she doesn't know him, but they like talk about meeting, and they like start to have feelings for each other. And she's like, I've literally never met this guy, but I'm like having feelings for him. Like, what is going on? And then he just ghosts her, like doesn't answer emails, like literally just falls off the face of the planet. And she's like, hey, like, why aren't you answering my emails? What's going on? So over time, like over a couple months, she's like, I guess he's just not interested in me anymore. It is what it is. And she is in an apartment, and this guy moves in. His name is Nick. Come to find out, Nick moves in next to her, and Nick is the guy who used to like, or is, I guess, the guy who wrote the fantasy book. Not used to, still writing. And she doesn't know that he's the guy that was like writing her. It is such a unique story, because I don't think I've ever read a story where like a girl falls in love with the guy she's emailing, hasn't ever met, and then he just happens to like move next to her. He doesn't even know that she lives in that apartment, and then they like kind of figure out that he's the guy that ghosted her, or at least he does. She doesn't know, and it is just so messy. She actually ends up asking him to help her find a date to go to this wedding, and he like knows all this stuff about her because they've been emailing, and so he's like, let me find your perfect guy. It is so cute, such a unique story, and I really enjoy this, and I feel like you will too. Rarity by Colleen Hoover is about a writer who she's really struggling financially, and she just like needs a job like ASAP, and she gets the ability to be a ghostwriter for this author who used to be a huge writer, and she ended up having some health issues, and so she had to go and pretty much like hire someone to do the writing for her. And while she was looking for a writer, the girl was like, you know what, I'll take this job, I'll be your ghostwriter. And it is wild, because while she's ghostwriting for this woman with health issues, she moves into her home, and the woman with the health issues literally lives there, and all kinds of crazy things happen in this house. Like, this is, I really enjoy this thriller, but this is a thriller that I feel like had people on edge when it first came out, because there's this whole discussion whether you believe manuscript or whether you believe the letter, and it's just like so good. And it's very like set on someone who's like writing and just like reading and books and all that stuff. So I think that this is a good one. If you haven't read it already, you need to. This book took the world by storm. Beach Read by Emily Henry is a book that so many people love, including myself, and it's about Augustus and January. They're both writers, and they go to, well, she goes to her father's like lake house or beach house, and next door, Augustus, he literally is her neighbor, but he's a writer, and he writes, I think he writes like thriller or something. I don't know. He writes maybe literary fiction. I don't know. Something that like she deems kind of boring, and she writes romances, like the fluffy, happy, like easy reads. And he's just like, your stories are so annoying. Like, I don't like them at all. There's like no thought that goes into it. And she's like, no, you literally could not write this even if you tried. And he's like, well, I bet you can't write what I write, because what I'm writing is like highbrow. It like takes a lot of thought, a lot of like research. And she's like, okay, well, let's actually switch, and you start writing a book that is in my genre, and I'll write a book in your genre. And they both take each other on dates that correspond with like things that have to do with their genre. So she takes him on like a date that pretty much would be like the typical fantasy, romancy, lovey-dovey thing that you would see in a romance book, and then he takes her on a date that you would see in kind of like a, I want to say he does like literary fiction, I can't remember 100%, but something that's like a little bit more maybe deeper or intellectual. It is really cute, and the whole book spans over like the time frame where they're like writing these books, and it is really, really interesting. They actually end up having books by the end of this book, and you get to see whose book is the better book. It's a good one. If you haven't read this one, I feel like a lot of people talk about this, but if you haven't read it, you have to pick it up. By the Book by Jasmine Guillory is one of my favorite books because it is one of those very happy, easy reads, and it is about Isabel, who she pretty much feels like just completely lost in her workplace. She works for a publishing company, and she is helping this guy who is like super rich. He's like writing a memoir of his life, and he just has not turned any of his pages in for his memoir. So she emails him and is like, hey, like, you know, my boss needs you to like turn in some pages. Can you please like, you know, start working on this book? And he responds back with like, yeah, it's coming along, but like, you're gonna get it when you get it. So she goes to his house, this huge mansion, and once she gets there, she's like, hey, like, knock, 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 please start writing this book, send in some pages. And he's like, well, I have really like just taking my time on this, but if you want me to like work on this, I'm gonna need something from you. And she's like, you know what, anything you need, I will give it to you, just let me know. And he's like, well, I actually need you to stay in my house with me while I finish this book. And she's like, excuse me? So she calls her boss, and the boss is like, of course, anything he needs. He's like a literal billionaire, like, or millionaire, or whatever he needs, give it to him. And so she ends up like moving into his house and staying there while he's finishing this book. But he really struggles to like dig deep into his life story to give this memoir, because he has like some trauma and things, but nothing super heavy. It's still a very like easy, fluffy book. And this is actually a like Beauty and the Beast kind of retelling, which is why her name's Isabel. So you get kind of like Beauty and the Beast aspects. It's by like Disney books. You get some like elements of Beauty and the Beast, like her feeling trapped in like his tower or in his like mansion, and like she can't go anywhere. She kind of like talks to like dishes in the bathtub, and like, you know, little things that kind of are kind of quirky but also connect with the like Disney story of Beauty and the Beast. It is a really good one. If you're wanting something that's super fluffy, doesn't have like anything too deep or heavy, this is a good one to read. This next book has my heart, and actually one of my friends just texted me today, and she was like, I am reading Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren finally, and I'm loving it because I talk about this book non-stop with my friends, with like literally everyone who comes across like just talking to me, because I rated this book 5 out of 5, and I also own it in the special edition copy, which I don't own any special edition copies other than this book because it's so good. And it's about Macy and Elliot, and they are friends over the course of their life. They've just like grown up together, and it's kind of like a friends to lovers / second chance romance situation, because they know each other growing up, and the thing that connects them with like just being bookish people, and the reason why I feel like you guys will love this, is because they are literally obsessed with books, and they read books together. They like have this cute little closet in her room where they like put all these blankets down and like just make it really cozy, and they literally read books together. Like she'll lay on his lap or just like put her feet up on him, and they'll talk about the books that they're reading together. They'll like write down little quotes and say quotes from books. It is so beautiful, like so beautiful, and that's like one big part of their friendship. And I almost didn't include this book because it's not set in a library or a bookstore, and it's also not about like publishers or writers, but I don't think I've read a book where people are as obsessed with books as Macy and Elliot are. So that's one of my favorite things about this book, because even as they get older, they actually like end up disconnecting, and so you get like 2 different timelines from like when they were younger, and you also get the timeline when they're older, when they have not talked for years. And so you're kind of like, what happened? But the whole like, I don't know, the thing that ties them together, I feel like, is books, because they just have such a really like deep love for books, and that's also how like a lot of their love story kind of started. It is so freaking cute. I rated this book 5 out of 5. It's just, I literally want to read it again. Every time I pick it up, I want to read it. So I hope you pick it up if you haven't already. This is probably the book that I can recommend more than any other book that I've read because I'm just obsessed with it. So go pick it up today. This book is a little bit different than other books that I've recommended. It's called Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. And the difference between this is that Nora is a screenwriter. So she actually writes, but she writes for like movies, and she writes for like Hallmarky, Lifetime type channels. And she writes a story that's actually based on her story when pretty much her husband left her, and she wrote a story about it, and then people were like, you know what, that's actually gonna make a good movie. So a like producer asked to like take the rights for her story and create it into a movie. She said yes. So they start like making this movie, but it's at her house because the book is set at her house. And the guy who's playing her ex-husband in the movie, like the actor, he's so obnoxious, so broody, but he's there and just like kind of gets in her way. And she's like, you know what, I'm trying to write, can you like get out of my face? And he's just like, where's your milk? Like, can I sit on your couch? Like, just not giving her any space, kind of like acting like, I don't know, like he's not like he's above her, but just kind of like not really considerate of anyone else that's in her house or in her space. And so she ends up just like really, he's so there that she just kind of has to connect with him, and they start talking, and she ends up actually having feelings for him. But as shootings start to wrap, she just is like, is he gonna be in my life, or is he gonna go back to like Hollywood and LA and we're never gonna talk again? And so this story is about her kind of following her dreams in a sense, because her life is very monotonous. I don't want to say boring, but it's very monotonous. And he kind of comes in and just like makes life a little bit more lively. Like they go to the grocery store and normally she buys the same food, and he's like, you know what, we should try this. Or she always gets the things that are on sale, and he's like, you know what, let's splurge a little bit, like you deserve it. And so he turns her world upside down and makes her just realize that there's more to life than just doing the same thing over and over. But will her heart get broken at the end of this? I don't know, not gonna say, but it's a good one. And I think it's a very unique story because she's a screenwriter, not like working at a publishing company or publishing house, and she's not like a writer for a book. It's very different, but I love this and it's perfect for summer. So this is the only book that I actually have not read, and it's I think the 10th book out of all these. I shared 9 books, but I had to share this one because one, I don't know like how soon I'll do another video like this, but I feel like I'll definitely be reading this soon. But I had to include this because it is so bookish. It's literally called the Band Bookshop by Maggie Banks, or the Band Bookshop of Maggie Banks by Shauna Robinson. And it's about Maggie, who goes to work in this bookstore, and while she's there, she pretty much realizes that they do not sell any new books at all. Like they're all super old books, and the bookstore isn't going under, but they're like definitely wanting a certain type of clientele to go in there. And she's like, no, we need like more diverse reads, and we need more books that are gonna appeal to like people of this literal century. And to help save the store, she decides to start this like underground book club where people talk about books, they review books, they have like events that surround books. And will she get caught? I literally don't know because I haven't read this book. So if you guys have read this, comment below what you think of it. But this is the only book out of all these books that I have not read, but I had to include it because it's so bookish and it fits so perfectly with what you guys have been like wanting me to recommend. So I hope it's a good one. And that is all the bookish books for book lovers about bookish things that I know you guys are going to really enjoy if this is like the type of book that you like to read. I hope you guys make sure to subscribe because I have new videos 3 days a week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. And if you want more recs like this, comment below the types of videos you guys want to see. I literally made this video because you guys all commented on the last video I made that was romances with no spice. You commented that this is what you wanted to see. So comment what types of video book recommendations you want. Maybe you want books that have lots of spice, or maybe you want books with like an enemies to lovers trope, or you want a friends to lovers trope, or you want like a grumpy sunshine. Whatever you guys are looking for to read, let me know and comment it below, and I will make a video that has specific book recs for you. I feel like it is so hard to find specific book recs with specific tropes, because usually when people do recommendation videos, I feel like they will maybe make a video that's like, here are 10 romance recs, but they're all different types of romance recommendations. So because I read so much romance, I feel like I have a plethora of books books to share with tons of different genres and tropes. So if you guys are wanting lots of different tropes, let me know and comment it below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!